first of all, I was 28 years old, and the limit was usually 26. So, and I had 4 kids. I had 2 kids by Irene, and I was supporting. I hadn't adopted Joni yet, but Maxine had a little baby, and she was pregnant with Iantha, our first kid. So I had 4 children. But they wanted to take me in the Army so they could kick me out of the Army and give me a bad political name, a black eye from that. So although I was trying to explain to the draft board that I had these 4 children and I couldn't afford possibly to go to the Army, I mean, this, that, and the other, they insisted.
And they knew that you were a communist?
Oh, yes, because I took the, oh, yeah, because, well, later on it turned out, you know, they had a whole dossier on me that they brought up from stuff that I had done long before I got in the Army. And when I got down to the draft board, I took the 5th.
When you got the draft notice, that must have been something of a surprise to you.
Yeah, my wife had a baby that day. I mean, that was the 24th of November. That was the day Iantha was born. Because we, as I said, we were trying to avoid that. And here came the greetings. And so on the 7th of December, I found myself standing in a child line in Arkansas. And, I was very nervous about the whole thing.
I was about to say, what did you think was going to happen? I mean,
well, I was afraid I'd get put in stockade. You know, I was afraid that there'd be some kind of legal action taken against me. Therefore, I was really a good soldier. I mean, I never tried to cause any trouble. I just went along with the program. I didn't do anything extra because by this time I was 28 years old, and most of the guys in there were 18, 20, 22, so I was a little more mature than they. And
were there any sort of political discussions that went on about?
Oh, there would be political discussions sort of in general. But then, see, I knew from when I saw that flag on my order, I know I'm being watched. So now I don't have to know who's watching me. All I have to know is I'm being watched. And I could test that out if I wanted something to go to the office, the headquarters. I just say it around in the barracks, and it'd come back. You know, I knew that I had a conduit. I didn't know who the guy was. Didn't matter.
And so your thinking, your concern while you were in the Army was that at some point, and you didn't necessarily know when it would happen, that you would be, in fact, put in the stockade.
For something, you know, that politics might come up. And, I tell you what was always happening was the people that I would hang with, the FBI would visit their folks at home. You know, if I started singing with a kid named Coletta. Al Coletta and I, we formed the Two Tones. And so we were singing around at Service Club and stuff. And FBI visited his folks home in Chicago. I was hanging with Buddy Gant. Buddy Gant I had known here in Chicago. We got, by coincidence, drafted together. So we friends in Chicago. We still friends down there in Fort Smith. They would investigate his folks. Anybody I was hanging with, they would investigate. So this would all, you know, and then cats would start shunning you for that reason. So there would be those kinds of political discussions, and that would reduce my friends to only the people who were also in the same position that I was in, or who didn't give a damn. Mm-hmm. And then we would talk all the time. But most of my time spent in there was just trying to be cool, you know, not do anything that would cause me any trouble. And I was lonesome as hell, you know, the first 8 weeks of basic training. Well, then they'd send you back another 8 weeks of all that time. As soon as I could get my family down there, I had Maxine and Joni and the baby, Iantha, and so we stayed in Fort Smith while I was at Camp Chaffee. It was actually, it was Camp Chaffee. It became a fort. It's now a fort. But I was at Camp Chaffee, and it was about 10 miles to town. And I got permission to stay off base. And that wasn't bad. They had a board hearing, and they charged me with, they brought me up on charges of being a subversive person. And they brought out, they had a board hearing, and I had an Army attorney, but my father hired an attorney from Chicago, Bob Ming, to come down and represent me in this board hearing. And I was charged with doing that which I was most proud of, having attended this rally, having been at this meeting, associating with Robeson, having associated with Du Bois, a whole kind of things. This is the hippest stuff I did. That's what they were attacking me for. So I pointed out to my lawyer that since they insisted that I get in, they couldn't then turn around and kick me out. You know, so I could really, they were in a logical trap. But on the other hand, they would have court-martialed the colonel. There were 3 colonels on the board. They would have court-martialed the board if the board hadn't kicked me out. I mean, that was the way it just was.
And they wanted to kick you out with a dishonorable discharge.
Well, it was undesirable, not desirable.
Okay.
Undesirable, but say less than honorable.
Right.
Meant then that your political career, if you're going to run for anything, the first thing your opponent is going to point out is that. So I thought that was the reason that they put me in the first place, was to mess me up politically that way. Although it never bothered me because I didn't run for office anymore anyway. And I went into show business. Now that's what I was scared again. I was afraid that something would happen and the Paul Robeson treatment would come down on me.